Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. As a Cuban cigar collector or Habanos enthusiast, you have most likely noticed on the bottom of every Habanos cigar box, so like here for example, a combination of letters and numbers stamped into the box. So we are calling them box codes, and if you have spent a bit time on cigar forums, you have probably seen people trying to decode these codes. Some claim that they can even identify exactly where a box was produced. But here's the truth: while box codes still remain very important, modern Habanos factory codes are far more difficult to decode and became actually kind of a mystery. In fact, one of the biggest misconceptions in the cigar world is that today's factory codes can still reliably tell us where a box was produced in which factory. So in this video we are going to separate fact from fiction, and based on some Cohiba examples from my collection, we will also clarify whether modern factory codes can be decoded or not. I will show you what box codes actually tell us today, what they used to tell us, and why modern factory identification is almost impossible. Before we are going to these codes, let's take a quick look what else you will find on the bottom of a Habanos cigar box. Of course, we have these marks. These are hot pressed or hot stamped and pressed into the box, so not just printed, they are actually engrossed into the boxes. So you will see the Habanos SA logo, the Hencho en Cuba mark, and also the Totalmente a mano, which means entirely by hand. So if these are missing on the bottom of the cigar box or look printed rather pressed, then it's usually already a red flag. Now next to the irons you will find these two lines with the box code. So the first line is the factory code and the second line is the boxing date. And every authentic cigar box, Habanos cigar box, carries these production markings that help identifying when and where the cigar were boxed or packed. Depending on the age of the cigar box, these markings can appear slightly different. So like here for example you have a blue ink, or in this case we have a black stamp, and in this case we have even double stamps, or same like here, double stamps with the same information. But at the end this box code gives you the following information, so the factory code and the month and the year when this box was produced. And for collectors, of course, these information are extremely useful. They allow us to estimate the age of the box and to understand where it fits into the timeline of the Habanos production. Of course, a box from 2016 can tell you a completely different story than a box from 2025. So this is why it's so important to have this information and to understand these box codes. And for the box codes, we have four major milestones which I have visualized with this image. The first coding system was introduced by Cuba Tobacco in 1985, and this was the so-called NIVELACUSO system. Here is the picture of this coding system, and as you can see, for each letter we have a number. So the letters were mapped to numbers: N equals 1, I equals 2, and so on down to O, which equals 0. I have also added two examples how to read this code. In 1999, Habanos then switched to another coding system, the so-called NETAGIDOCU. Actually the same concept but with different letters. This is how this coding system looks, and they changed the letters for the numbers. So yeah, please feel free to pause the video in case you wanted to take a deeper look to these coding systems and to the examples. Then from 2000 onwards, the system became much more readable. The date code is now 3 letters from the month in Spanish, and on this picture you can see the current and well-known coding system with the Spanish month abbreviations. So DIC 19 is, for instance, December 2019, which is actually now very straightforward, and this coding system is still in use today. For collectors, this information is extremely valuable. When you're smoking an aged Cuban cigar, the first question could be, for example, how old is this cigar? 5 years of age or 10 years of age can dramatically change the cigar profile. This is why it's, as already mentioned, so important to read or to understand these information. And unlike the factory identification, this part of the code remains still understandable for everybody. And now we are getting to that part that generates the most discussion, the letters or the so-called factory codes. Years ago, collectors began identifying connections between specific letter combinations and factories. Some of the most important ones for collectors are, for example, the El Laguito factory, the home of the Cohiba cigars, that carried, for example, codes like EUN in the late 90s. Over time, lists have been created with factory codes mapped to certain factories, and smokers began comparing boxes based on those factory codes. Some collectors even develop preferences for particular factories. Whether those preferences were justified is a debate for another day, I would say. But of course, for many years, factory code discussions became a major part of the Cuban cigar culture. And if you browse all the cigar forums today, you will still find those listings being discussed. But yeah, that's already the past. Meanwhile, Habanos changed this factory coding system, and today the factory codes are secret and have not been disclosed by Habanos. According to Habanos, they changed the factory code mappings multiple times over the years, making modern codes very, very difficult to track. The 3-letter codes on modern boxes will tell you actually that the factory exists, but it will not tell you where that factory is. And with this policy, Habanos wants to prevent selective purchasing by factory. Actually, this coding system was only for internal quality purposes, so it was not intended to be understandable for consumers. And despite of this secrecy, there is still one factory which I thought the mapping of the factory code might be easy. And of course, I'm referring to the famous El Laguito factory, where, according to Habanos, all of the Cohiba cigars are being produced. So if this information is still true, then we might have one weak point, I would say, in the factory coding secrecy. Let me show you this list with some Cohiba boxes from my collection. In this list, we have the name of the cigar, the factory code, and the boxing date. So here, for example, and as you can see, we don't have the same factory code for specific year. For instance, here we have a group of cigars from 2019, but we have different factory codes. For 2023, for example, it looks a bit more consistent. Here we have 2 cigars with the same boxing code or factory code, which is GES. What is strange and a bit out of regularity, I would say, are the Behique boxes. They all have the same factory code, despite of the different boxing dates. As you can see, here we have for every Behique box and different boxing dates, always the same factory code MOR. And another topic what I wanted to highlight, for example, and I marked these with red. Here we have a Cohiba Esplendidos with the same boxing date, so October 21, and the Behique on the bottom, the Behique 56, also with the same boxing date, October 21, but with different factory codes. The question here is, if all of these came from the El Laguito factory, why are they different codes? Especially for those produced in the very same year. So let me know in the comment section below what you think about this example. What are the box codes for your Cohiba cigars? That would be also very interesting. Are they matching some of these codes on my list? So yeah, it's a bit difficult to understand. As you can see, it's not that easy. Therefore, my conclusion on this list is, in case the information is still valid, that Cohiba cigars are exclusively produced at the El Laguito factory, then you will still have different factory codes, even for the same year, even for the same boxing date, month and year. Yeah, very, very, very interesting. And what does this mean for us collectors? So despite of the factory codes being secret today, the box code still gives you a lot of information. Of course, the date code tells you exactly when the cigar were boxed. Combined with the Habanos warranty seal, the irons and the overall construction of the box, you will be still able to identify if a box is authentic or not. Yeah, so let's quickly clear up also a few myths. So myth number 1, modern factory codes can always be decoded. This is actually false. Just take the Cohiba example. Myth number 2, particular codes guarantees a better cigar. This is definitely false. Construction, the tobacco, the storage, the aging of the cigar, all these matters far more than just the factory code. And myth number 3, box codes can authenticate a cigar by themselves. So this is also false. Authentication requires multiple checks, as I mentioned before, including the different labels, the Habanos seal, the barcode, the printings, the stamps. All these is far more important than just a factory code. The box codes, in general, it's a piece of a much larger puzzle created by Habanos, I would say. Yeah, so what we have learned, box code remains one of the most interesting details on the Habanos box. The date still provides valuable information, I would say. The code still identifies production batches, but the idea that every modern factory code can be decoded is largely a myth. Do you think factory code still matters when you're buying a Habanos cigar, or do you focus much more on the cigar itself? Let me know in the comment section below what do you think about this topic. And of course, if you enjoyed this deep dive into Cuban cigar boxes, thanks a lot for liking the video, for subscribing, and as always, have a great smoke, everyone.